Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And today we are talking about the energy of and around the Sagittarius New Moon on December the 4th, which is at... Oh, not December the 4th, sorry. We're doing something else on December the 4th. November the 26th, 2019 for the new moon at 3:05 p.m. Universal Time. That's London time. So we'll talk about all that in a bit, and there's some energy around it we want to talk about. But first, let's do quick introductions. Then we've got some other announcements. Then we'll dive in. Jen, quick introduction from you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Deshen, and I
think Jen doesn't know what she does.
Right, yes, I don't know what I do. It's like, oh, what do? I provide my clients with tools, mentoring, and guidance to trust their wisdom and liberate their soul's choice. I'm also the creator of the Illuminating Journey cards, and I have a membership and
Cool. Yeah. And I am Louise Eddington, soul astrologer and writer of modern astrology, Harness the Stars to Find Your Soul's True Purpose, I think is the title. And soon to be released, my second book, Complete Guide to Astrology, which just takes a real new approach to the language of astrology. So I'm quite excited that that will be out in the new year. And I help my clients to regain the connection with the cycles of the cosmos, so they live in deep self-awareness and self-acceptance. And a couple of announcements. I'd like to welcome new patrons. We have some new patrons. Thank you very much. We're really grateful to you. And I am going to start posting these podcasts to Patreon, so you get them in your account. And as soon as we reach a certain level of patronage, we'll be doing patron-only content. So if anybody else would like to support our work in this podcast, it's patreon.com/weirdly magical. And the announcement, I did already sort of say the date, December the 4th. Provisionally pretty set on that date, but it's vague possibility it might move to the day after. We are going to host a free 2020 webinar like this, where you'll be invited to attend live and ask your questions. So look for details of that. We'll probably post it as a Facebook event and on our pages. So do look out for that and come along and bring your questions and see what we have to say about the coming year, which is going to be a pretty big year.
Indeed.
Anything you want to say about that, Jen? Any other announcements?
Any other announcements? No, I realized I forgot to say my title or whatever, my Akashic reader, the healer. Anyway, that's my announcement. I don't have anything else to say except join us and send us your questions.
And that you can either send questions for the December the 4th 2020 sort of forecast, if you like. We're kind of going to do a big overview of the major events, or come live and ask your questions. But for general podcast recordings like this, we do take questions. We don't have one this time, but it's weirдлymagicalpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any burning questions, send them through to us to our email, and you may be featured live on air. Okay, Jen. So before we dive into kind of the chart and the energies around it, we have both pulled cards. And Jen, what card have you pulled?
So I pulled from the Illuminating Journey deck that I created, and we have card 18. So I find that really interesting. For those of you who can't see the card, it's all blue. There's a lot of water, and there's like buildings, and there's kind of like pools of water, and this energy coming down into the figure with kind of with her hands held. And there's also a Pegasus. So a lot of water, a lot of shifting energy. It makes me think about Neptune, which I think is interesting. It also feels like this card is indicating shifts in our consciousness, and a shift away from a more egoic approach into something that is more aligned to our spiritual journey.
Mm. And the card I pulled, I mean, these are slightly different. The cards we pull are normally almost the same, but this is from the Thoth Tarot, and I take this more as a bit of a caution, looking at the energies. It's the futility card. It's the Seven of Swords, and this is really the yeah but card. This is your own kind of swords, your inner swords that are stopping you doing what you want to do, where you're putting up your own blocks and going, yeah, but this, and yeah, but that, and can't do this. So it's the yeah, buts, the can'ts, all that kind of things. It's where are you stopping yourself getting to this enlightenment behind, which is actually the Aquarius energy that we're heading towards in 2020. And I do see we've both got a bit of turquoise in them. So.
Right. Well, actually, I think there is a correlation just because of the fact that when we are moving or shifting into the idea of accepting the unknown, there is everything, you could kind of look at this card and think about things kind of coming apart or water gushing out, and the world around us kind of collapsing in a sense, and wanting us to stay within our own energy. And in a sense, that's the opposite of the year but thing, is that it doesn't really matter because we're being kind of pushed or swept into this place where we have to make choices.
Well, there is a correlation to me, because for those that can't see the card, as Jen already said, there's a female figure with her hands out, and this spirit streaming down from above. And this card being associated with Aquarius, my card, the Seven of Swords, the symbol for Aquarius is actually spirit being poured down from above. So, but my card's just saying you've got to get out of your own way, first of all, to get to that point where you're letting the spirit stream down into you and live in alignment with that, I think. So,
right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Brilliant.
Cool. So, quick overview of the energies. So, the new moon is on November the 26th, as I said, and it's at 4 degrees and 2 minutes of Sagittarius. My favorite time of year.
I wonder why.
Because I'm multiple Sagittarius. So, so this one's at 4 degrees of Sagittarius, exactly in the middle of my Mercury and Mars. And it's conjunct Pallas Athena at 7 degrees Sagittarius, right on my Mars. But it's also in the astrology of the chart, we have Mars in Scorpio, also at 4 degrees but that's a Scorpio. The new moon is in an inconjunct aspect to Uranus in Taurus. And there's a couple of other things we're going to talk about. 2 days before the new moon, that Mars in Scorpio is going to exactly oppose Uranus. So all these things are really coming in together. Uranus will also aspect Ceres, which in fact we're recording this on November the 15th, and Ceres is just about to move into Capricorn, and will be at 3 degrees by the time of the new moon. She's had a long stay in Sagittarius, but she is moving into Capricorn. And Ceres is kind of important because she's going to be at 22 degrees Capricorn when Saturn and Pluto meet at 22 degrees Capricorn on January the 12th. So it's kind of significant that she's gone into Capricorn and will be aspecting Uranus. Also, the day of the new moon, Venus enters Capricorn. So the Capricorn energy is really building up. And this is the last standalone new moon of the year. We had the next one is an eclipse. Also around it, Neptune is stationed direct on the new moon. Basically, it turns direct shortly after the new moon, and Neptune is sextile to Vesta, and also on the new moon, Venus is square to Chiron, or shortly after the new moon. So there's kind of a lot going on around the new moon. So we can't really talk about the new moon without talking about all these other energies. So we'll dive in, Jen.
All right. So very exciting. I find the numerology is very exciting because we have the four of the sun and moon, 4 degrees, so 2 minutes. And that's very interesting because they are both manifesting numbers. And this is falling on the 26th, right? Is it the 26th?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Which is an 8. So we have all 3 manifesting numbers showing up, 2, 4, and 8. What's so interesting about this is that it is pointing us towards creating something new. Like, we really need to do things to bring our ideas, our dreams, our views alive. Like, we actually have to activate it into the world. Whenever you have the 4 and the 8 together, it's a destined moment. So we know that this is a highly destined moon because of the numerology. That
I
is,
want to say as well that Mars is not only at 4 degrees of Scorpio, but it's at 4:48. So there's 2 4s and an 8 there as well.
right. And that's so interesting because Mars is our libido. It's our energy. It's our starter energy, the fire that gets us going. So this really is a time to start to do things. The other thing that's fascinating is that this is a 22 universal date. And we are having this pointing us to the 22. We're moving into 2020. The meeting of Pluto and Saturn and all that is 22, right?
Yes, it is 22
So
degrees.
again, the 22, it's a master number. So we have it in the date. It's also a 4. So there's a lot of this buildup of energy or pointing to the idea of us bring peace, to be the architects of our own existence and creation. I know we've talked about this before, but this moon really is pointing us towards this. It's like everything else is falling away, and it's like this is the time to bring these ideas, these thoughts, these things we've kind of thought about and desired and longed for into our field. This is a time of creating that in abundance, but abundance is not necessarily that we get everything we want right away. It is something that requires work. 4 is the number of work and diligence and paying attention to details and being a disciple of what we're bringing in. So it's about getting down to brass tacks. The 22 is the bigger vision, helping us to design, and then the 4 is all about building new systems, kind of collecting our energy. The 2 cards that we brought up, certainly the 18 that I was talking about, this is about moving out of our own way. And I think that's the other part of the card that Lou pulled, right? Is like moving out of the way of the can'ts. I can't do this. This is impossible. It's never been done before. People say it's not possible. All of those things that we have lived with, basically this moon is saying, get over that. Just get over your idea that this has never been done or can't be done or it's not safe to do. It's really taking your values and bringing them into the present moment by taking action. Like, we change our minds by literally moving towards a new path. We actually open neural pathways in our brain when we go, right, I'm going over there, and we choose to go, not see the obstacles as something that's like, oh, that's stopping me, but more just, oh, I'm just doing it. So when we just get on with it, the obstacles tend to move out of the way, or they tend to change shape, because we're not seeing them as something that's stopping us. We're just seeing the action or feeling the energy of, I have a path to go on and I've got to do all these things.
Mm. And interestingly, we didn't talk about this before, but the new moon in Scorpio that was just over 2 weeks ago, that was at 4 degrees Scorpio,
Right.
where Mars is now. So it's definitely going to kind of trigger both the end of that cycle, but I think there's going to be something going to come back up again. That new moon was opposing Uranus, and Mars is opposing Uranus on this chart. All that Jen said, and then Pallas Athena conjunct the new moon. She is the asteroid that is that represents a visionary ability to see patterns and strategy. She was a very strategic energy, or represented that as a goddess. And she really is a kind of visionary, in a visionary sign. For those of you watching on YouTube, I've kind of got my Sagittarius archer firing, piercing the energy behind with the vision. This is a real firing your arrows into the arrows of your vision into the future, saying it's really time to kind of enact them and not just sit dreaming about them anymore or planning them anymore.
Right. Talking.
Yeah.
It's like you have to get past the talking, and there's this explosion of energy of this idea that we have used a lot of our latent desire, which is Mars. We've used it to maybe complain or dream about things and say those things that's impossible. And this energy is really asking us to shoot those arrows into the potential future. This is where I want to go. So this is a pivotal moment of us making a choice, as opposed to being kind of herded into something we don't want. So we are actually having to make the choice consciously and go, this is what I want, these are my boundaries, this is what I believe in, this is where I'm going to go. I'm not going to listen to people who are naysayers, or even myself about, oh, I can't do it. I'm just going to go for it. Go ahead.
And then, of course, Mars is action too, take action. And opposing Uranus is saying, do this differently now, to change up how you've always done it. This is a real kind of pattern breaking new moon, I think, really.
Yes, I agree. And also with the having the Scorpio energy, which is Scorpio, the buried truths or the buried desires that we have not addressed, or our anger, or the things we haven't voiced that need to come to the surface, that
and also buried treasure.
Right, buried treasure. And we need to do something with it. Like, we can't just go, oh, there it is, and then let it just float away again. We want to actually take the treasure or take the thing and go, okay, what is in here that I want to activate and build and create? So it's the burden, if you want to use that word, is on us to now kind of point the direction we want things to go in.
And it reminds me of that phrase, if it is to be, it's up to me. It's kind of like, it is time. You're the only one that can make the changes. It doesn't mean you have to do everything on your own, but you are the only one that can actually take the action towards your desires. You can't just let somebody else take the lead or rely on others to do it for you. And it's a very forward thinking new moon, this one. We are moving even faster into a rapid period of change, all these new cycles starting in January, which we'll talk about more on December the 4th and at other times. But it is an initiating. Mercury is now in the new moon chart at 14 degrees, will have been direct for 6 days, kind of still in the shadow of the retrograde, but out of the kind of most challenging time, which is for about 5 days around the station direct on November the 20th. So Mercury's gaining speed, sort of the information that you've reflected on and reviewed and done all those things during the retrograde that we're in as we record, you'll be starting to actually take action on that as well. So that's moving. Then Mercury is in aspect to Neptune on the full moon, and Neptune is stationed direct as well. So in January, we have a brief period where all the planets will be direct, actually, because Uranus turns direct on January the 1st too. So we're coming into a high-speed period of change overall. Another shift that we've having on this new moon is that Venus will have just moved into Capricorn, as I said. Ceres moves in tonight. So by this new moon, we'll have Venus, Ceres, South Node, Saturn, and Pluto all in Capricorn. And Jupiter not far behind, sitting on the galactic center, which is kind of the sun of our sun for this for this galaxy, the Milky Way. It's a big black hole that kind of emits new information. When Jupiter's on the galactic center, it emits big new messages and new information, because Jupiter is expansive, a big gas giant. And then on December the 3rd, just after this new moon, Jupiter goes into Capricorn too. So we're really moving into this massive time of big changes coming. You're going to hear a lot of fear about this. I actually was on a panel yesterday where we talked about where things are going, but we have to remember that with all these times of massive change, some people do really well and some people don't. It's just, it doesn't necessarily mean the whole world's going to fall apart. So I did want to.
Well, the good thing about if the whole world falls apart, then we're all in it and we all fall apart together. So it really doesn't matter. So the point of this, to me, of these moons and this build up, and like what Lou's been saying, is that we are being guided to these points where we get to kind of pause and go, okay, I have lived a certain way, I've done these certain things, I've been a good person and I feared all the things I was supposed to, and now it's like, okay, everything's expanding. When you think about Jupiter being in this expansive in its own sign, Sagittarius, which is about changing beliefs, changing laws, changing kind of traveling into new places, higher education. This is all about this, and having this boost just before it moves out of Sagittarius, knowing that it's there. It's only once every 12 years that it's hitting each of these houses. So this is this boost. It's like giving us this boost to go forward and go, I can be positive. It's that same old story, if you think you can, and if you think you can't, you can't. So it's like, this is the moment to go, okay, I'm going to let some dictator decide what I'm going to do and just kind of take over, and I'll just give in or give up all my power, or I'm going to start kind of surfing or whatever you call it, like, what do you call it, skiing, like that kind of overland skiing, what do they call it, that kind of cross country skiing over this plane of challenge. Like, it's cold, there's no one there isn't a path, I've got to do it, and but I'm feeling that immense freedom. This is what this is all about. All this energy with Neptune and Mars and Jupiter and all of these things going into Capricorn is about this expansion of freedom. Like, wow, I can feel that the wind, I can feel that I'm forging a new path. I'm a pioneer. I can go do all these things. What I find so fascinating is not only do we have all of this with the movement, we're also heading into the eclipses, which is then going to besides, well, you were talking about the occulting and all these other things and the things we've just been through, and Mercury, who is our messenger, the way we receive information, having come out of this retrograde, the final retrograde and the deeper sign, with us shifting our stories and giving us this huge expansion of change, like, wow, this is possible. It's just kind of going to blow our minds, or at least that's how it feels, like it's going to be so open. And I keep seeing that picture of the being in the snow, like virgin snow, just on your little snowshoes, going through, and there's nothing, just nothing but the sound of nature, and just being able to kind of go through and go, okay, I'm on my way. Like, yes, it's a little disturbing. I don't really know where I'm going, and it feels exhilarating and amazing at the same time.
I'm definitely feeling that. And Jen mentioned the occultations. I didn't actually mention them in the podcast, so I will do now. Right after the new moon, the next day, the moon moves on and actually occults Jupiter on the galactic center. Or at the last degree, in fact, it will be at about on the occultation of Sagittarius. And an occultation is like an eclipse, except it doesn't cover the whole planet and we can't actually see it with our naked eye. But the moon will be blocking out the energy of Jupiter. Now, every month this year, the moon has been doing that with Saturn and Pluto, and that happens for the last time the next day on the 29th. So on November the 28th, the moon occults Jupiter, and that's going to kind of, what it really, if you were around for the Great American Eclipse, or if you've seen a solar eclipse, it's that reset energy. So here we have Jupiter on the galactic center, and then the moon blocks out all this energy, and the moon is really our emotional receptivity. Okay. And it's also the past. Okay, the moon is the past. And here the moon blocks out all this energy of the galactic center and Jupiter from our perspective. And and then suddenly the moon's moved on again, and it's like this big blast of energy. So it is kind of a complete reset, like the eclipses. So we've got a ton of eclipses coming up, really, with an occultation of Jupiter on the 28th. Then the next day, occultation of Saturn and Pluto again, and all these are new beginnings. So we've got new moon, occultation, occultation, occultation. It's kind of like everything is being reset again for us. I did want to mention that lovely. It's a triangle, but it's not a T-square. So we have Vesta and Mercury opposing each other right after the new moon too, and in aspect to that stationed Neptune as Neptune turns direct. All at 15 degrees, we're going to have Neptune, Mercury, and Vesta. That to me is really bringing in the peaceful energy that Jen's been talking about, the kind of, if anybody's been cross-country skiing, it's just very glidey, and it's just a very peaceful sport. It's not kind of aggressive. It's one of the more peaceful sports there is, I think, to do. And if you're out in the snow, as Jen said, it's very peaceful as well when snow's fallen. That the Vesta in Taurus, Mercury in Scorpio, and Neptune in Pisces really makes me feel as if we're kind of in this focused sacred devotion, which is Vesta, kind of spiritual bubble amongst all this action energy and these resets and starts that we can really tune into if we choose. So.
Right, exactly. It makes me think of the 18 of the card, of the figure, kind of tuning in and receiving this kind of coolness. Because if you think about our emotions, what has kind of made it difficult for us to get ahead or created obstacles is our attachment to fiery emotions from the past, right? That kind of like firing off resentment and anger and shame and all of those things that have kept us stuck, like angry and stuck. And now this, with all this coolness coming in, is an opportunity to just release those emotions and just let them go. And I love it that the three of them, Vesta, Neptune, and Mercury at the 15 degree, because 15 is this sacred magical number that allows us to center on service and joy and what it is to be here in that space of being who we are, to express who we are. So instead of apologizing for who we are or our ways, we begin to focus on, it doesn't matter what people think of me. Maybe I need to adjust my tone and do all this, and I'm learning as I'm going. But the basic thing is I'm here to express myself and the joy of being here on earth. And so I'm just going to do everything. I'm going to live from that place. I'm going to work from that place. And so none of the other stuff really gets to us because we're in the sacred fire of truth. I'm focused on my path. And the thing that I also thought of when Lou was talking about the skiing is it's an endurance thing. It's we're here for the long haul. This isn't just a sprint. I'm going to get to the end and I'm there. This is something we're working on, and it can take you a while to cross those snowshoes. They're kind of like till you get your rhythm. So it really is a fascinating thing. And then to see, for me, also what I find interesting is that Mercury, when it comes out of, in this moon, coming out of retrograde at 14 degrees. And we're actually in a 14 month right now, universal month. And 14 is a 5. It's about change. And it's about changing our voices. It's changing how we present our opinions into the world. And this is also very much a sacred thing. We want to kind of incinerate the old way of just being angry, but we want to kind of make the sacred pledge to our spirituality and to our truth, that we can express this without worrying about somebody else telling us we're wrong. I mean, or trying to shut us down, because of course people can try to shut us down, but
of course.
right, that we don't need to pay any attention. And what comes to my mind is what's happening now with the what do you call that? What they're doing in Congress? The
the impeachment.
Right, the impeachment inquiry. When you look at Adam Schiff, he's like somebody who understands the spiritual connection. Like he knows what needs to be done, and he's not being distracted by any of the things people are saying about him. Like, there are people who are trying to put him down.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Right, but even some of these amazing witnesses that have no axe to grind, they don't have party affiliations. They're just doing their jobs, and to see people trying to like kind of get them off their snowshoes, like kind of knock them off, and these people are not responding because they don't care. They have so much integrity, and they have so much focus on what needs to be done and the idea of what needs to be shared. Like, they're not doing this because they want glory. They're not doing it because they want attention. They're doing it because they need to, right? Their soul is demanding that they follow a certain route. And I think these are great examples of what we need to do, like in our own lives. Like for me, what I'm finding very interesting in this month, where we are replaying some of the old emotions that we've dealt with in the past, what's coming up is my responses to setting boundaries. Because of course, when you're doing this kind of work, when you're setting your goal to really bringing your truth alive in this warrior sense, that you will not be kind of distracted, you have to set really firm boundaries. Of course, you're going to be tested. People are going to come up and they're going to push your boundaries, and then like sometimes it's just like, oh, okay, I'll go back to who I was. And then you kind of go like, wait a minute, that didn't feel good. So moving from kind of childish behavior or behaviors that we learned as children, or even like growing up because we didn't have better models, and now going, no, that doesn't work, I'm not going to do it. And we can still be kind and loving
Yeah.
and go, no, right?
Yeah. And I've noticed a couple of other things as we talk.
Yeah.
To go back to that Mercury, Vesta, Neptune aspect, there is actually also building with that aspect a cradle pattern. If we include Saturn in Capricorn as well, that's made of earth and water, and they're both very yin energies. So we've got Uranus in Taurus, which is earth, Neptune in Pisces, water, Saturn in Capricorn, earth, and then Mars in Scorpio, which is water. And Saturn rules Capricorn, Neptune rules Pisces, Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. And so we've got 3 planets there in their domain, in their home sign, really, really strong. And the 4 of them, if we're bringing in Vesta over there in Taurus, and that could be said to, Vesta could be said to be associated with Taurus in some ways as well anyway, because
Right.
she's very much about sacred devotion, the home. When Taurus is associated with Earth, our home. So we're very cradled on this new moon, even though there's a kind of a lot of action and a lot of shoot your arrows and a lot of visionary energy. There's this underlying cradle pattern, and configurations are very strong really in astrology. And the cradle is what it says. You are cradled, and you're cradled in kind of this focused devotion, spiritual, creating foundations, very inner energy. If you don't have a practice already, I would really recommend doing something around this new moon and the days afterwards, whether it is sitting and putting your hands out like in Jen's card, some kind of prayerful energy. It doesn't have to be prayer in the way you're brought up with, but meditation, morning pages. I'm doing another morning pages thing in my Facebook group, anything that really tunes you in and enables you to really focus on your inner flame, your inner devotion, your inner focus really will help you kind of really maximize the amazing amount of energy and information that's going to be shooting into our psyches from these occultations, this visionary new moon. With Pallas Athena on conjunct the new moon, you'll be able to perhaps suddenly see the bigger picture of things that you've not seen before. It's that kind of energy. It's what's that song, Suddenly I See? It makes me think of that song. It's like clouds parted, and so it's
Clearly
like,
now.
oh wow, I can suddenly see where I'm going.
Right, exactly. And this is the devotion to the spirit or the essence of who you are, the truth. Like this is bringing you back away from what people have told you, of what this is all about. So the cradling of the energy is so apt and so beautiful that we have it mirrored in the geometry, because of it's like coming back to the big mother who is the
Yeah.
earth, going, this is who you came here to be, this loving being. So I just noticed that Vesta and Pallas Athena and is it, I forget the one that has the little daisy on it, I always forget.
Do you know?
Juno, that's it. They're all, well, 2 of them are at 7, but the other one, Vesta 16, that's also 7. So there are 3 sevens, which is all about this idea of bringing our own wisdom to kind of research for our own wisdom in order to connect to the divine in us and the divine in the world. Like we are being
Cradled in the divine, really.
right. Exactly.
But I think it's something we have to really kind of choose to do, and just trust as well. Neptune in Pisces is very much about trust and surrender. It's not, again, this is not something that's out there. You know, this is within you, this cradling, and this is where your strength is, and it's in your own spiritual practice and tapping into your own spiritual essence, as Jen said. Yeah, and all that Capricorn energy, I have to talk about that as well. You know, Venus, Ceres, South Node, Saturn and Pluto all in Capricorn on this new moon.
Right.
Capricorn gets such a bad rap. I really think that well, everybody always says, you know, it's like stern and and it likes hierarchy. Capricorn likes, you know, organization, rules, and its focus, and it's like the firmer parent, really. The Cancer Capricorn polarity axis is the parents from birth to death. Capricorn and Saturn are the death doula. They are, you know, they're accepting the cycles of life. And it is like the firm hand of parenting, not the pick you up and give you a hug kind of parenting. But you need both those kinds of parenting, and it's all about foundations. This is the kind of parent that gives you the sense of safety and solidity, and builds your sense of stability again. Yeah, you know.
Right.
Think of the other word I was trying to think of. And with Ceres and Venus in there, Venus is our values and our relationships. Ceres is about grief and forgiveness. I do think we're going to have, she's actually got a really fast time through Capricorn. Ceres was in Sagittarius for ages, like most of 2019. And she goes into Capricorn tonight, and she's out by January 25th, I think. So that's really quite quickly. And with all these conjunctions happening coming up, I think we're going to go through a lot of grieving and forgiveness about where we've given our power away to institutions, rules, all the things we've talked about before. As these cycles end and begin, I think Ceres is really bringing in that quite natural ability to grieve and say, you know, I kind of wish I hadn't done that. I'm grieving the fact that this happened, or I did that, or that kind of thing, and then moving on. You know, it's again, it's accepting the natural cycles of life. We've become a bit antiseptic in the West here about death, grief, all that kind of stuff. We try and make it better and plaster over it and and kind of not immerse ourselves in it. I think over this dark time of year, here in the Northern Hemisphere at least, I think we're going to go through a lot of energetic grieving, personally.
Right. And, you know, it's really interesting because, of course, Saturn is very much like the number 4, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
this idea of devotion to a cause or to a creation. And the truth is that we're kind of in the mess we're in because we've avoided the dedication that it takes. Oh, it's boring, it's all of those things. But
Mm-hmm.
the truth is, when you're building a new foundation, a new world, like we are right now, where everything we have known is collapsing,
Mm-hmm.
this is what is needed. It's required to devote ourselves and be dedicated and have that fixed kind of energy about how we're using our time, how we're using our resources, and what are we focused on, because you can't build something sturdily if it's all built on, you know, shaky foundations. So it's really important to understand and to value this part of Capricorn and Saturn. Is like it's the stern parent or the stern part of the our world, right?
Yeah.
It's not all soft and pretty. Like even with spirituality, there are so many people who want to avoid the idea of the strength of spirituality is in its devotion and its continued practice and its need to say hard things, like the need to do difficult things. It's not just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to say, oh, forgive you, and I'm all gone. That isn't what that's about. It's like, no, I have to show you again and again what I mean. I'm going to have to go back. Like people are going to come in and they're going to break down your stuff and you're going to have to go and go, I'm just rebuilding it. You're not going to stop me. I'm just going to keep building and building. I'm going to go back and keep doing it over and over until we pass that period of all this stuff that's trying to change. Just like what I was talking about, how we have to avoid the distraction or ignore it and just focus on what we're doing. Even if they break it down, we just build it up. And I do feel like you're right, with Sirius going through very fast, it almost feels like it's a wind moving through there of understanding that, yes, there are the processes of grief and forgiveness, which are very healthy and healing. But at the same time, we don't want to be caught in the theater of this,
No,
right?
this is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Which a lot of people do. I mean, I see people whining
They do.
about, and this, I'm not talking about people that actually are going through grief or something like that. And we all are going through grief in different ways. When you're losing something that has been dear to you, like for me, losing parts of myself that, okay, they're not serving me well anymore, but they're still a part of me.
And you were used to them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like part of my life, right? That's why, like, I see that with clients, is one of the most terrifying things for people when they're coming to let go of old stuff, is the idea that I'm going to lose my identity.
Yeah.
And who will I be? And I feel like that's what's happening here in Capricorn. We're losing our identity. The Saturn thing is like, all that stuff you've built on is just built on shaky ground. It just has to go. And so you can only bring a certain amount of the old to something new. And then you're going to have to figure out how that fits in to this place.
And it does have a certain serious feel, it's because it's determination, it's diligence, it's very Capricornian, Saturnian kind of energy. But we need that, I got a first class honours degree when I went to college because I was determined and diligent. You can't,
Right.
Life doesn't just give you roses all the time, and things don't always come easily. If you really want, to build your desires and your vision, then sometimes you have to kind of get down on your knees and scrub the floor. It's that kind of energy.
Right. I think too, it's this idea that what has stopped us, or the obstacle, right, stopped us. Yes, they agree. Woof woof. What has stopped us has been
I'm just going to turn my volume off for a second. I'll let Jen talk.
Okay, so what's really stopped us from doing this, like going ahead or getting ahead and doing our dreams, is our fears and our
dogs,
poor behavior.
Dogs.
Your sound is not off, but anyway, poor behavior. So that
Are
is
they?
what we have to have diligence about. We have to go beyond that. Like, okay, I am transforming my behavior by developing new habits. And that's the role of Saturn, is helping us. He really is creating the foundation of the cradle and going, this is what you need. You feel fear, you feel insecure because you don't have these things. And I'm giving you these things because I'm making you do this over and over until it becomes second nature.
Yeah, it's true. And they've stopped, thankfully.
Right. Your sound wasn't off, but it didn't matter. We heard you yelling, dogs, dogs, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, really? Oh,
that's just part of Saturn, right?
Yes, it is.
The thing is.
Oh, I turned my volume off.
That was hilarious.
I couldn't hear you. That's really weird.
Oh, that's
anyway. I was going to say about the Capricorn energy as well, that I can't remember now. No, I've lost it. Oh, that's so funny. Oh gosh. Anyway.
Right. Well, it's certainly interesting. We have a lot of eights. We have the nodes are at 8 degrees. We have Saturn at 17, which is that 8 degree of leaving a legacy, really powerful. Um,
And in
so we
fact,
know that's right, all part of it. And
two
then
days
Lilith.
2 days after the new moon, Lilith will be at 8 because she's fast moving. It's the true Lilith.
Right.
And Juno will be at 8. There'll be an actual cardinal grand cross with Lilith, Juno, and the nodes
Wow.
on November the 28th. So
Well, exciting. So we have a lot of exciting things happening around Thanksgiving in the US. Like people, we have
it is.
lots of opportunities to bring spirituality, like, thinking about what spirituality is. Sometimes spirituality is allowing people to speak without giving them your opinion, right?
Yeah.
And that's really the thing to think about. What is spirituality to you? How do you value it, and how do you want to use it, as we are being drawn into this deeper earth energy of the earth's voice, what the earth was, the power of the earth that's coming back.
I've remembered what I was going to say.
Yay.
It's just something I've been feeling and witnessing with clients and things like that, and it feels very Capricornian and Saturnian to me as well, that a lot of people are paring down. That's very Capricorn too. The materialistic society that we have created, as people are finding it less attractive now, or less tasteful. It's not something, it doesn't mean we don't like to have a nice place to live and things, but it's this, and I'm particularly speaking to the West, because we look at it from our perspective. But this constant, lining up for the latest iPhone, or buying, I was thinking of rock hounds, crystal collectors. I'm like, people just amass vast numbers of stuff, and I've done it with card decks and things like that. And books. It's like, gotta have more, gotta keep buying, gotta keep doing this. Well, people are paring down now. People are looking at it and going, I don't need all that stuff. I don't need all that stuff. It's not about going and living in a cave and giving all your stuff away. So I'm not talking about that. It's just paring down, needing less. I'm really feeling that's coming in with all this, with more and more stuff coming into Capricorn.
Right. I mean, the thing is, when you have a lot of stuff, you have to think about something about stuff. What stuff does is it helps us to avoid dealing with spirit and with our essence of who we are, because we're surrounded by things. So like, even being busy with whatever social media or whatever it is that we're using as a crutch is an avoidance of being alone, of being with who we are, or being with our desires. So that's definitely a huge part of it, because how can you concentrate when you've got all this stuff? Just like when you're building something new, you want to just have what you need. Otherwise you get overwhelmed. I certainly do. But what was really funny when you were saying pairing? I kept thinking about PAIR.
Oh,
PAIRING. And what's so funny about that is, like, people are paring down. It made me think about the woman who was in the Harry Potter, Emma Watson, I think.
Oh yeah.
She's been saying she is self-partnered or something, and
I saw that.
mocking her, but actually that makes total sense.
I have a friend whose Facebook says I'm married to myself.
Right.
Kind of thing.
It's kind of the same thing, right? That's why it was funny that was coming. It's like, yes, people are going like, I don't need all these extra people in my life. I'm not saying we're going to split up from our partners, but it's just like, I don't want to be around people who don't have the same focus as I do, who are not interested in the same things. And it is very distracting. Like, if you want to do something and the person you're with or your friends want to do something else, and you're just going along because
it's like me paring down my Facebook friend list.
Right. Exactly.
I've reduced it by well over 1,000 already.
Wow, that's impressive.
I just don't need to be friends with everybody. Doesn't mean I don't like them. It's just
And it just feels less
Yeah,
noisy and busy, and
yeah,
you know, and then you see more things.
yeah,
It's just like that. All the things people say is when we have like a big list or something, and we afraid of letting it go, and then when it goes, or we raise up prices, and then we get more business comes in. It's like you're just making more space for change to happen, which
exactly.
is very Saturnian, I think, too. And the fact that we have all of these, you know, Pluto right there, right? That's part of this kind of letting go, right?
Yeah.
Death. It's like you,
Elimination.
right, elimination. You're walking down, you're reducing to, you're paring down to
Yeah,
what is essential.
yeah,
uh, the journey of Inanna. Do you take
yeah,
down every single thing? You think you have nothing left to give or to release, and there's more, because that's the ultimate, is when you come to face with your own soul, with the idea of, it's the phoenix, right? The
yeah,
phoenix rising is the idea of complete uh, acceptance of death, of what has been.
yeah. Cool. Well, I think we should do the symbols.
I think you're right.
Shall I do mine first this time?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we always go up a number. So the Chandra symbol is Sagittarius 5, and it's 3 women materializing out of a fog, being mesmerized by your own triple reflection, casting a huge chunk of your own soul back into the dim past, casting another chunk of your soul into the remote future, and enshrouding the present time chunk of your soul in layer after layer of obscurity and evasiveness, living simultaneously in past, present, and future, but with all 3 time frequencies held away. Therefore, to a fantastic extent, you live inside the subconscious mind with virtually no conscious outlet. Down inside there, something extraordinary is happening. Free from the glare of any form of overt reflection, you are gestating, healing, and making yourself ready for the infinite unknown to pop or hatch. Intensive, seething forces of dreaming into the void, the great abyss, and while knocked out of outer commission, liberated to conceive the inconceivable and to renew your tangled and damaged roots in the old wise woman way that never ages and always works. Just wow. Well, that resonates for me. See, I'm coming up to my 60th birthday, my old wise woman thing. But no,
Right.
it speaks to me of all that we've talked about. The arrows into the future of Sagittarius, of the actual new moon itself, the moon, the past, doing the occulting afterwards, and then that cradle of being very present. Okay, so it just beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and makes me think about Chiron that we didn't mention, but
Oh,
really that whole thing with Chiron being right there at one
mm,
Aries, that point of beginning, the fire of healing, right?
yeah,
Healing our wounds and moving on from there.
yeah,
So, yeah, very interesting.
yeah,
All right. So the whatever Sabian symbol, yes.
yeah,
Sorry, been up since 2:30 this morning. An old owl sits alone on the branch of a large tree. So the keynote is a poised and wise approach to existence based on a clear perception of unconscious factors and their operation. The owl has always been a symbol of wisdom, and its hooting call has evoked a rise to mysterious and hidden elements in life. The owl functions lucidly in the night aspects of existence. Her eyes see what women normally fail to perceive. She represents that consciousness which is active, where the process of life normally escapes the attention of the personal ego and its intellect. It suggests the possibility of developing a wisdom beyond tragedy, a peace and poise beyond conflict. And one might speak here of translucidity.
They're very similar in feel, these symbols to me. And incidentally, Pallas Athena being conjunct the new moon is her symbol is an owl. So even though, as we started off saying, this it's time to take action with Sagittarius, shoot your arrows into the future. We can't forget that cradling, that kind of sitting poised and wise, and tuning into spirit and the unconscious and the subconscious and all those things. Yeah.
Right. Making those choices to shoot the arrows into the things that are truly what you desire, not what your ego or other people have told you. Stripping away. That's more of that stripping away. So
not rushing in before tuning in.
Right.
Tune
That's
in,
great.
then shoot your arrow. And if you actually think of an archery, really, it's not. Sagittarius does tend to rush at things, but an archer doesn't. An archer really takes aim and is very still before they fire the arrow. So.
Right. In order to hit the target, you really have to, what they do is they actually tune into the target. They become the arrow.
Yeah.
And they connect to the target. So it's a very powerful image that, right, really allows you, if you tune into, is this something I really want? And is this, how I'm going to shoot the sacred arrow? Then it gives you all that force of your desire behind the energy.
Exactly. Cool. Well, happy new moon to you all. I'm excited. I always am excited when it comes to Sagittarius new moons, Gemini full moons, because it's my time of year. But so Jen, where can people find you?
So they can find me at jendushen.com, and I'm on Facebook. I have a group, We Belong Here. I'm on Instagram, and I don't know where else I am, but everywhere. Mostly, I have a page on Facebook, and on my website you can get my cards, illuminating journey cards. So jendushen.com/illuminating journey cards. I also have a membership group and classes. I teach classes in Akashic and other modalities, as well as doing readings.
Cool. And I'm Louise Eddington. My website is louiseeddington.com. Again, Google my name, you'll find me everywhere, but follow me on Facebook, or I have a Facebook business page that you can like, Louise Eddington Astrologer. I have a free Facebook group called the Planetary Magic Cafe, where we're actually doing another morning pages challenge to help us through all this Scorpio Mercury retrograde stuff. And we've also got an exciting free 21-day art journaling challenge coming up in December with one of my clients is kind of going to help me do that. Also on my website, I have a membership site. You can find all this on the website with various levels of membership. You can buy my book, Modern Astrology. I do consultations. My consultation rate will be going up a tiny bit on my 60th birthday, because it's my 5th Jupiter return on the 60th birthday, and I'm giving myself a gift. I know, the marketing thing is you give a special deal on your birthday. I'm like, well, it's my birthday.
Right, I want the gifts.
Yeah. So if you want a consultation at the rate it's at now, book it before December the 14th, basically. And don't forget, December the 4th, we're doing a free webinar call where you're all welcome to come and join us and ask questions, where we'll give our big overview of 2020. So I think that's everything. Our Patreon, Weirdly Magical on Patreon too, if you want to join us and support our work there. So for now, it's goodbye from Lou.
And goodbye from Jen.